Ice gets super angry at Joe Budden for disrespecting his family.
He ain't talking about. I don't know who the he talking about. Get the out of here with that.
He ain't talking about my daughters.
He is not talking about this one. He said whatever the he want.
That's right, Joel. On the last episode of the Joe Budden podcast, we saw Ice get super frustrated, and it showed so deeply that even Mark Lamont and Melissa Ford started to notice it with some of their facial reactions, and even Mark Lamont going so far as to say, "You look really angry, Ice."
I'm going to be the adult in the room for a minute and say that we have created some tension in the room. Y'all seem bothered by this.
I'm ignoring that.
They ain't paying me no money.
You look irritated. I'm bothered by it.
He texted his daughter and shit. He ain't paying me no money.
I'm not paying that no mind.
So how this whole thing escalated, they were having a discussion about fatherhood and raising daughters. And it was Flip and Joe and them. They were really the ones going back and forth about how men try to control the men that their daughters date because they fear that their daughters will end up with somebody like them. This is often something that is very concerning for fathers, especially for fathers who have had, dealings with women, who have run through women and lied to them. They have often considered, oh, that was somebody's daughter. Well, Joe, as he likes to do, pushes the envelope a little too far, and he starts remixing the classic Madonna song, Papa Don't Preach. And I gotta say, he did a good job of it. And he crosses the line a little bit when he makes an analogy about a sexual act. And it was a joke. The premise was a joke, but it was too close to them because it was possibly about their family. And that angered Flip so much that he would get up and approach Joe and kind of stand over him. And I think Flip was joking. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was serious. But I do know if it wasn't Joe and somebody else had made that joke, it probably would have gotten uglier than that. But on the Newark side of the couch, you had Ice getting super sensitive. Now, I don't know if he's getting super sensitive. I don't have a daughter, so maybe this is why it really hit home for him. But he started saying stuff like, I know he ain't talking about me. I know he ain't talking about none of that. And if you notice, there is a history of the way Ice likes to cover his family on the show. I mean, he said, I think he said in the back channels to Joe, hey, please don't mess with my family. I don't want to deal with that. And there was a time on the Joe Budden podcast, if you don't remember, about a year into Ish and Ice's arrival, where all Ice would do is talk about his family. Every time you asked him about, or you could ask him about the Brooklyn Nets, he would say, oh, I love my family. And I think Joe hit him up behind the scenes and straight up told him, we don't want to hear none of that. So that was a creative difference that occurred. But here we go many years later, and Ice does not like how Joe played with his name, played with his, family dynamic. And this is just something to watch because Ice has been really sensitive over the last couple of months. There was the Flip incident where Flip was making fun of Ice for how he, was dressed and ready to go for the 10-year anniversary. He was making fun of him. He said he looked like somebody who killed Malcolm X. And then there was another time where Ice was made fun of by Flip for how he wanted to leave the show earlier. And he was like, oh, look at him. He's on his phone. He's angry. He wants to go see his girl. And Ice was not digging that scene at all. But there was also other members of the show. Like I mentioned earlier, you saw Melissa Ford kind of squirm and notice how mad Ice was. Then you saw Mark Lamont Hill say, oh, he looks really upset. And Ice said he wasn't upset, but there was some body language that could kind of reveal how angry he was. I mean, his foot was shaking voraciously, very fast. And he also said that he didn't know the Madonna song, Papa Don't Preach. Now, most people know that song. It's one of the biggest songs to come out of the 80s. So, as you can see, Ice wasn't feeling it. But let me know what you think. Do you feel like Joe Budden crossed the line? As a joke, I thought it was great, man. And I think this is attention for the Joe Budden podcast. One moment, you want to make the best content available. But then something else happens. The issues of respect, culture. Like the culture, you're not allowed to play with someone's family. But what if it's entertaining? It creates a issue. And it's going to be interesting to see how this goes moving forward because Joe doesn't like to diss Ice, but it seemed like he really angered Ice in that moment. And I want to close by saying I saw the Joe Budden podcast basketball game, and I was utterly shocked at how trash Mark Lamont Hill was. I was not prepared for that, guys. I'm not saying I'm athletic. A lot of people say, hey, Danny, you're super fat. What do you know about athletes and all that? But what I do know is Mark Lamont Hill did not score in the first game. His team was left on 4, and it was largely because of how bad he was. I mean, he was turning the ball over, shooting straight air balls. The only people who looked like they was kind of decent was Imani, Joe, kind of decent. Everybody else was terrible except Keeb. Corey, straight trash as well, not good at basketball. Parks, straight trash as well, not good at basketball. But let me know if you saw it. I thought it was good content. I enjoyed something different, and I think it was fun to watch. Another big note of this is if you did have the Patreon, you had to pay $14 to watch it, which is a big departure from how they've released content in the past. They did release the Flip and Joe argument for, I forgot how much it was, but it was only 4 minutes. But this was $14. And let me know. I paid for it, man. It's a tax write-off. I can say this is for my, business. And now we are at a point where Joe is going to the PPV model, the pay-per-view model. I'm kind of split. Because right now, what Joe is charging for is for new content. He's not charging for the stuff that he used to do. I think if you pay $25, you still get the episode on Monday, the episode on Friday. You get day of releases, and you get behind the scenes. But now, I guess now that he's doing extra stuff, like the arguments and the basketball game, maybe he feels more entitled to charge. And I did notice a lot of people asking for the illegal link. So that means there's a market for this. There's people who feel left out. And part of getting people to pay for stuff is creating FOMO. Oh, you might be missing out. And that's where the value of these communities come in, guys. That's where the value of a channel like this exists. Oh, man, I might be missing something. I need to subscribe. That's how the Joe Budden system operates. You see the chatter online. You see people talking about, yo, I can't believe Ish fell and nobody was touching him. He just fell down out of nowhere playing basketball. That's sick. And people want to buy it. That's the machine, the Joe Budden machine that often gets ridiculed. And that place is running well. All right, y'all. Let me know what you think about Ice snapping on Joe and getting super frustrated. Let me know what you think about the JBP basketball game, and let me know what you think about the new pay-per-view model that the Joe Budden podcast is going in. They've just done 2 pieces of content where you had to come out of pocket in order to pay. With that said, follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. Follow me on Patreon, The Stop. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.
You are now chilling with Big D from The Stop.